Hey guys, welcome to this series of training courses on Element and Element United. Joining me today is Scott Lomu, President of Element United. Scott, welcome.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So for the folks watching Inside Connect, they've probably seen something about Element, but for those that haven't, give me like a 2-minute quick pitch on what Element is all about.
Sure. The easiest way to explain this is we use blockchain technology to solve a lot of the problems that exist in the mining world. Now, unfortunately, most people don't understand all the problems that come with mining. There are massive environmental issues. In fact, about half of all the carbon emissions on the planet are from the mining industry.
Wow.
But there's also things that I've seen personally. There are child labor problems, there are slave labor problems, there's a lot of corruption. There are a whole bunch of things that go into us being able to have the technology that we have. We have this insatiable desire for phones and electric vehicles and computers. All of that is only made possible from mining. And unfortunately, there's a large section of the mining world that's unregulated, illegal. And so we're using the blockchain technology to solve a lot of the problems. There's a big wave happening right now where people, they want to know where all of these elements are coming from.
Right.
They just take it for granted that it just shows up in your phone. What they don't realize is that with certainty, every phone, every computer that we have has at least some sort of trace elements that were mined illegally at the cost of the environment, in some cases with child labor, slave labor. So we are using technology to solve some of these problems. But the first thing that we have to do is bring awareness to the problem, is to let people know, do you have any idea what it takes for us to live in this modern age? And most people are really shocked by it.
Okay, we're going to get into a lot of the things that you just touched on. Before we do, let's talk about your background. Sure. You've kind of got a unique story. Tell our viewers about kind of what you've been doing.
I've paid my dues to understand where these problems have come from, mostly because I was part of the problem. I ended up mining in about 2010. I ended up gold mining in West Africa. Now that is a whole new series of shows to explain how I got there and what the heck happened to me out there. But I ended up mining in Ghana for about 5 years. I also did some mining projects in Arizona and in South America in Guyana. And I ended up gold mining out there in West Africa, and just partnered up with a friend of mine, figured it out. We had never done it, had zero background in mining. We just were coming off of the recession through the bad real estate market.
Right, 2008?
Oh yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, we tried to ride it out as long as we could, and then when all of our money ran out, we heard about a few guys who were doing some gold flipping out in Ghana. So we thought, hey, we scrounged up the little money we had and said, let's go flip some gold. Realized in about 10 seconds, you can't flip gold. Everybody out there knows what the price of gold is, and most of the gold deals out there are scams. And the group that actually got me out there got scammed for a couple $1 million on a gold deal.
Oh, wow.
And we were driving, and our taxi driver said, you can't buy gold cheap here. Everybody knows what the price of gold is. You should mine it. So we thought, okay, let's start mining. We started mining. One thing led to another. We ended up there working, partnering with some big companies. I even ended up having a TV show, ended up on Discovery Channel for 2 years.
Now let's, I like the story about how the Discovery Channel decided to take your case.
All right, so
you got to tell that.
Yeah, Discovery Channel heard about us. They heard about these two guys in Utah who were trying to figure out how to mine gold, to provide for our families. And it was just off the heels of a new show they had called Gold Rush. That was a real hit. They were looking to expand their gold shows. So the same crew that makes Gold Rush, they actually sent a guy out with a camera, a small crew. They sent it out to follow my partner and I. So they just said, listen, you guys do what you do. We're going to stay in the background and be quiet, and we're just going to film you doing what you do. So they filmed us for a week. At the end of the week, they sat us down at this restaurant. They said, all right, we have filmed all over the world. We have seen everything you can see, but I have never seen what I just saw over the past 7 days. One of you is going to die. We're going to be here to film it. Welcome to Discovery Channel.
And the show was born.
And the show was born out of the sheer chaos. And the things that they saw, that this crew saw, shocked them on how mining actually happens, because we were in this world of small scale mining with the locals, with tearing down, crops. They were just shocked by what they saw, and they wanted to make sure that they captured it, made for good TV. And typically destructive, dangerous, harmful things make a good TV.
Right.
And so that's why they were interested in it. And so, yeah, did the show for a couple of years.
So when we think about gold mining, I mean, some of us think of some prospector panning for gold in a river, you know, no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
Describe to us, what does it actually look like if I'm going to be a fairly, you know, significant miner?
So there's different types of gold mining. There's the big, you know, industrial scale companies like Barrick and Newmont, the guys who are pretty much doing it the right way because they have a lot to lose. But there's this massive section of gold mining that's done by, sometimes it's called artisanal mining, but a lot of it's illegal and a lot of it's destructive. And the type of mining is called placer or alluvial mining, which means you are digging down to the gravel layer of an ancient riverbed as close to the river as possible.
Like with big trucks
excavators. Yeah, you've got big excavators, now it's done on a lot of different levels. The locals will literally get a couple shovels, dig a hole the width of their shoulders and go down anywhere from 5 to 30 feet to the gravel layer, take buckets, pull it up with a rope, and then process it on a very small, extremely dangerous. Those pits cave in all the time.
Right, no supports.
Exactly. And the reason why the locals there love guys like me, because we can bring equipment in and we can do essentially the same type of mining, but do it a lot quicker. So now what we do is we dig down all the way down. It's called the overburden, which is anywhere from 5 to 30 feet. We dig down, get to the gravel, and then you what's called wash the gravel using mechanized means like a trommel. You'll put it into a big separator that separates all the fine gold off of the rocks, and it'll spit it on onto like those carpets you've seen, like in these TV shows. It's called miner's moss. It'll spit it out on there. But the way that it's done, the quickest way to finish that process, typically you would need some sort of finer refining, like with what's called a wave table, or you can pan it. It'll just take years to do. So what the locals do, and many of even the mid-sized companies, is they'll use mercury. And mercury is when you get, after you've washed all the gravel, you'll end up with a bucket, maybe the size of, you know, like this tall. And in that bucket are all the heavy materials, but you still have to separate all that heavy material from the gold. So if you take a little bit of mercury and you stick it in that bucket, the gold will attach to the mercury. And then it speeds up the process and makes sure they get all the gold out. But the way they do it is they'll get that little bag of mercury, dump it in this bucket, and then they'll wash it by hand or by foot until that mercury has a chance to attach to all the gold. And then this is a shocking part, okay? Here's what they'll do is then they'll pan out all the heavy material, and what's left is the mercury at the bottom.
One of the most hazardous substances known to man.
Yeah, this is the stuff you were told from birth, don't touch it, right?
Right.
And so what's left is that mercury. Now all the gold has attached itself to it. And so the final process is they'll dump that mercury into like a handkerchief. And so if I'm holding a handkerchief flat on my hands, I'll dump that mercury in, and then I'll kind of twist it like this, and all the mercury will start to seep out. And then they'll take that mercury, it's like in the form of a ball now, and they'll suck on it and spit the mercury out. And then that's not even the worst part. And then they'll take that ball. So what's left is this little silver ball, and it's just all metals now. And then they'll go into, typically they'll do it in a private location so no one can see what they're doing. They would build these wooden shacks, and they'll have a little burner, and they'll put the mercury ball in a fire, and all of the mercury would burn off because it burns at a lower temperature than the gold. And these kids, the Discovery Channel guys, they would watch this, and they nicknamed the kid that would do this on our sites, they nicknamed him Twitch, because they said this kid is going to have problems the rest of his life, because he would stay in there and it would burn off, and he'd sit there and breathe it. And then what's left is a gold ball. So I have videos and pictures of all these little gold balls. What it took to get to that gold ball was burning off and the sucking off of all of that mercury that just got spit into the back into the river. So that's one of the more destructive parts. But really another part of it is because you want to be close to the river, you're in these villages, because the villages are as close to the river as possible. And you're into their crops, which in Ghana is cocoa. Most of the chocolate in the world comes from Ghana and comes from these regions close to the river. And the locals, they go in there and they want you to mine because they make more money if you come in and mine. And they'll tell you, tear down all the cocoa plantations. Now keep in mind, this is how they make their living.
Why would they do that?
Because you can make 10 times more from gold than you can from cocoa. But what they don't realize is when that gold is gone, you're gone.
Right.
And now they're left with just open pits that are never reclaimed, and the destruction. Now they're full of fuel, oil, mercury is all now in that pit where their cocoa plants used to be. This happens all over West Africa. In fact, if you were to go onto Google Earth and zoom in to an area where I used to mine, the pits that we dug and that all the other miners are still there. They're, because they've been opened up.
How big are these?
We would do an acre at a time, and there's thousands of them, and they're everywhere. And it's and you get fooled into thinking you're there doing good, because the locals, when we would show up, the locals held parties for us.
Because you're bringing jobs.
Yeah, go watch one of the episodes of Jungle Gold, which was my TV show. They did full. They would slaughter animals, and the whole village would come out and do dances. Because we provided jobs, and they made a lot more money off the gold than they do off the cocoa plantation. But it's a short lived, because when we're gone, the gold can only be harvested once. The cocoa can be planted forever.
You're killing the golden goose.
And this happens all over the world. It happens all over Central, South America, West and South Africa. In fact, the Pope went down to Peru because it's a big problem down there, and he said that the illegal gold mining trade is one of the greatest travesties of humankind. This is the Pope that went and saw it firsthand, and this is the type of stuff that happens all over the world every single day.
So you're going in, or I should say they're going in.
They.
Scott no longer participates.
Repented.
They go in, they destroy the land, make it so that it cannot be farmed again.
It is not usable for a long time because of what happens to all the oil and everything that gets stuck. And it's just open pit, right?
They're polluting the waters, and they're basically bringing health hazards to the people that are working in those conditions.
Absolutely.
And what percentage, I know it's hard to measure illegal operations, what percentage of mining operations would you say are legal versus illegal?
We estimate that about 30 to 35% of all mines in the world are these types of small scale artisanal, where all the illegal activity happens. Now, one thing you should know, when we got in a little bit of a tiff with the Ghanaian government, because we would talk about statistics on the TV show. At the time, there were 25,000 illegal Chinese miners in Ghana alone. These are people that didn't sneak across the border. They came in on a plane and walked through customs. So there's a lot of corruption that happens as well. And so people all over the world, all these expats from Ghana, when they saw our show, were outraged. They said, wait, how did 25,000 illegal Chinese miners get into our country? And then people start, asking uncomfortable questions. And so we were because we announced that information, and now, of course, we had proper permits. We were working with with the locals. We had a local Ghanaian partner who we did everything under the name of them, but we were still the target because we were the one exposing kind of this dark secret that exists all over the world.
What about, so you said miners, and I was thinking children. You were talking about workers, but let's talk about miners as in children. There's a big problem with child labor.
Of course, and that happens everywhere, and these families are just trying to feed their kids. And in Ghana and in a lot of these other areas all over the world, it's just a fact. Children start working earlier to help support the family. A lot of times they're pulled out of school. It happened here in the United States in the early days as well. People were always pulled out of school to help support and work on the family farm.
It's a different culture.
It's a different culture. It happens there. Most of the kids work on the family cocoa plantation. So when you go in there and replace the cocoa with mining, they stick the kids in the mining. Like we would have kids, like we would look for reasons to help them. They would like carry bags for us, just do little things, because they were infatuated with us. They wanted. However, this need that the families have to support the families is exploited, and it's exploited all over the world. In fact, recently on the Joe Rogan show, there was a man that went into a cobalt mine in the Congo, and there were just a sea of humanity, 12, 15,000 people, many of them children, working in the cobalt mines because they needed the money.
Right.
And so it's easy for people to take advantage of that, of putting kids in the mine. Obviously, you want to keep the kids out of the mines no matter what. But these families, out of desperation, will stick them in there and put them in dangerous positions. And so I think one of the solutions now that Elon Musk said was he was going to put cameras, so if he saw children coming into these mines, he wouldn't purchased from these. I'm not sure what it was, but it's a massive problem, and it's done out of desperation to feed the kids, But man, it's a horrible situation, and it's rampant. This isn't
Right.
a one-off.
Right.
This happens all over the world, and when these kids are in these mines, they're in a lot of danger. Not only to the chemicals, but just to the sheer type of work.
And for those of us sitting thinking, well, this has nothing to do with me, it's everything to do with us, right?
We are all part of the problem.
Why?
Because if you have technology, if you have a computer, an electric vehicle, if you have a cell phone, we are all contributing indirectly to that problem, because we have this insatiable desire for all this technology. It comes at a cost. With surety, I can tell you that everything in your phones, there's at least some sort of trace mineral that probably came from an illegal mine, an environmentally destructive mine, and in some cases, child and slave labor.
So, talking back to your experience with gold, what would people be surprised about the cost to get that gold out of the ground?
Yeah. On top of all the environmental cost, all the social costs, all the, just the cost itself, we operated on very thin margins. So when we were mining, it cost at least 80% to pull up all that gold out of the ground. So you're working on very slim margins, which is why people take shortcuts like using mercury or hiring cheap labor. So because of that high cost, people are always looking, what is the cheapest solution? And then you justify it by thinking, oh, I'm helping these families. But just the hard costs itself are above 80% from my experience. And then you take in all the other costs, the environmental, the humanitarian destruction that's happening in the gold. And not just gold. This isn't exclusive to gold. This is a lot of different types of mining that exist out there right now.
What a lot of people have done is invest in gold, but never see that gold.
Right.
Talk about kind of the lunacy of spending all that money to pull that gold out of the ground for someone that's just going to put it in another dark place that they're never going to see.
Exactly. The gold comes from one place deep in the ground, in the jungles, and it just goes into another vault. Right. And so it's just like all this time and money is spent taking it out of the ground only to be put back into another vault. Right. That's where there's a lot of solutions coming up now with figuring out ways to digitize or monetize the in-ground asset. Okay. Leave it in the ground. Why would you pull it out of the ground to go stick it somewhere else? And so there's a big movement right now to digitize in-ground assets, keep it in the ground, and then find ways to recognize its value either in other ways, or there are a lot of companies out there right now that are just securitizing it and monetizing the in-ground asset.
So let's talk about what Element United specifically is doing in that world.
Yeah, we are trying, first and foremost, we're looking for different solutions. So I'll give you an example. We're working with gold mines right now and trying to monetize and incentivize these gold mines to not mine. Now, of course, we all need mining to happen. Right. Everything that's enabling this interview is because the mining industry exists, and that's universally recognized that we're not trying to stop all mining. But there are things that we can do to recognize what's in the ground and then create alternative revenue streams off of what's in the ground. And I'm not talking about creating a digital security or anything like that. Let me give you an example. So we have a mine partner that we're working with in Tanzania. He has 100,000 acres. He has given us 10,000 acres to figure out another way so that he doesn't have to mine, but how we can create revenue for him. So what we're doing a couple things. We're going to gamify gold mining that we'll talk about later, and we're going to create another revenue source through carbon credits, through allowing us to create 2 additional revenue sources for him without actually taking the gold out of the ground. And that does a couple things. It allows us to create more of a sustainable economy for locals in the area and to preserve the environment while still giving a great financial incentive to the mine owner himself. We have done some projections where we think we can create more money for him by not mining that section than he would off mining it. Now, it's probably a section of his mine that gives a lower gold yield, but we can create through blockchain products more revenue for him by keeping the gold in the ground. Okay. And this isn't even actually digitizing and creating a security. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. That is a completely separate thing that can be done down the road. We're talking about what can we do now to give a miner, and this is what it comes down to. It comes down to incentive. Can we give someone that controls this in-ground asset an incentive to not engage in mining? Because no one's going to do it because they're nice, and they're going to say, "Oh, I'm causing environmental destruction. Sure, let me stop. Still got to feed the family." So we're using mines to create additional revenue.
Okay, so I think what we're talking about here is the element certification process.
So one of the things that we're going to do is certify. So that we have to back up just 1 second. Okay, we want to give this miner greater downstream visibility because there's a big movement that's happening right now. I just mentioned the Joe Rogan show. The Joe Rogan show is putting a big spotlight. This guest that came on put a big spotlight, and it wasn't just him. There's multiple organizations out there asking a very important question: where do the elements from my ring, phone, car, where are they coming from?
Right.
And there's this movement where people now, they want to know. 20 years ago, it was blood diamonds.
Right.
Am I buying this blood? Is this diamond I'm having? Did a child get his arm chopped off by some warlord because he didn't mine it fast enough? So now there's a new movement because now everybody's into green energy and into rechargeable batteries. People are starting to ask the very important question: where did these minerals come from?
Right. If I'm saving the planet by driving my car, am I killing it by driving my car?
Exactly. And most likely you're doing more damage, right, by trying to do something good by driving a rechargeable battery. Do you have any idea what it took? That cobalt fat manufacturer with the 10,000 or 15,000 people in there, including a lot of kids, was there so that he could make rechargeable batteries for cars. Okay. So we look at what we're trying to do now and we say, okay, what is the first solution that we can provide that helps? And one of them is called the EMC, the Ethical Mining Certification, which is an NFT on the blockchain that certifies the mine itself. Once minerals, gold, silver are mined, it kind of enters this, weird supply chain where it's combined. This guy buys from this mine, it's combined, and it's easy to lose track of where these elements are coming from. If you certify the mine itself, then you can know that the provenance or the origin of that gold was pure, was mined ethically. And that there's a lot of data that NFT can contain.
How is it going so far? How receptive have people been as you've been out talking to these mine owners, to these government?
They want it. Everybody wants it because every mine wants to be viewed as one of the good guys. And just as importantly, they don't want to be viewed as one of these people, getting elements out of the ground at the cost of humanity and the environment. So everybody that we're talking to, the governments, we have a crew out in Africa. We have crews out in East Asia getting incredible reception. We've met with government officials in Tanzania, in Kenya, and Indonesia, and the Philippines. And when we talk about what we're trying to do, because think about it, this is an industry that they make a lot of money on. And people are starting to ask the questions, and they're starting to take sides. Do I want to buy from this guy who might be using children, or who's definitely using chemicals and not reclaiming the land? And so when we go in there, we say, let us help with making it easy on the mines in your country to sell their product, the gold, silver, lithium, cobalt. We get an incredible reception from these countries because they see what's happening. They hear the drums beating. They understand that these wholesalers and jewelry stores are starting to really ask the questions and demand that they know the origin of these elements that are being mined. And so this first product that we have it certifies the mine. It will contain data such as, are their permits up to date? Do they have a reclamation plan? Are they using child labor? Are they paying a fair wage? Do they have a plan to help the locals? Is there a give back element in that? And so all of these things we come up with what goes into that NFT, and that NFT allows them to have greater downstream visibility to all of their buyers. Now, this requires two things. It requires pressure from the top. It requires governments support what we're doing. And it also requires us as consumers to demand that these products that we buy are ethically sourced. And so once we do that, then that's why it's making our job a lot easier to put products out there like an NFT that certifies the origin of whatever the mineral is.
So is there, and there may not be, is there a number or a range of like how much gold is pledged to the blockchain, or any kind
You
of...
know, we're up to about 41,000 acres of mines that have pledged to stop mining. But there's really two different things you're looking at. You're looking at, first we look at mines that have pledged to stop mining, and then there's all the other mines that are continuing to mine that are pledging to become element certified. And we're just getting started.
Right.
So we've got our first few mines that have signed on with us. The first one that did was the mine out in Tanzania with our partner out there. And but we have thousands of mines that we're going to be targeting and explaining the benefits of why having this NFT certification can help them. But we start at the government level, and if we can convince the governments that this is a good thing, and then they can either mandate or heavily encourage the mines in their country to follow this protocol, we're going to have a lot of success. But this is something that's needed. We're fulfilling a need, and as long as the consumer demand is there for the origin of what they're buying, then this is going to be a great product that's going to solve a lot of problems. Because remember, in this NFT, they're making some very strong commitments to not engage in all of these things that are so rampant in a big part of the mining world. Now, again, there's a lot of good mining happening out there by good, responsible companies. We're just trying to solve the problem with this middle of the road, a lot of illegal, destructive companies.
Okay, so you just mentioned there's commitments for the mine owners that they have to follow.
That's right.
A lot of these places are in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
How do you police that?
You have to do spot checks just like anything else. The most important thing is the data. The inputs have to be reliable. So when our input in the case of the ethical mining certification are random spot checks. When you show up, they have to be able to produce their certifications, their permits. They have to show that there's no children on the site, and that they're reclaiming the land that they're no longer using, they're no longer mining. And so these spot checks, it's pretty simple. Like I've got a guy out in Ghana who's our spot check guy. He'll be handling, and there's kind of a road that, there's different areas, and he'll just randomly drive out, do a spot check, and then we can input that data to show that they're still certified. And if they're not, we pull the NFT, we decertify them. And so the big thing is making sure that certification means something on the market. And so that's why we have to work with jewelry stores and the consumers to make sure that they demand that, similar to the Kimberley process with blood diamonds. So the Kimberley process basically eliminated blood diamonds because there was a demand for it. That demand is back, and we're going to fulfill that need, but improve on the Kimberley process by using blockchain technology that allows greater downstream visibility, and the data is reliable, it's trusted, it's stored on the blockchain, and that makes the data a lot more reliable.
So what about, the whole process of mining is somewhat uncertain. How much gold is there? Where is the gold?
Sure.
If we're not disturbing the ground, how do we find the gold to know that it's even there?
Technology is awesome. There's a lot of ways that mining companies are categorizing and using or finding out how much gold. Most of the mines that we work with now have already gone through an extensive assay process using what's called an N43-101, which is a process of finding out what's in the ground. Technology is advancing now with LiDAR and satellite technology that we're able to use and leverage to find out what's in the ground. So for example, with this Tanzania mine, with this section of the mine that we've been allocated, there will be an extensive assay done on that ground using these new technologies that show us precisely what is in the ground. Because if we're going to create new values for in-ground gold, you first have to categorize it. You first have to know with surety what is in the ground. And there are ways now that we can use these IoT devices that we'll talk about more on the carbon credit side. But with LiDAR scanning and satellite technology, it allows mines are using it now, to be able to categorize what's in the ground, and we'll leverage that same technology.
Sounds fascinating. Yeah. Okay, so our Connect affiliates are watching all this thinking, this is fantastic, but what does it have to do with nodes?
Sure.
How do nodes make all of this possible?
All of this technology is powered by the node. All of the verification, all the trust, all the validation, verification, everything is done through the blockchain, and the blockchain is run on nodes. So really, we're trying to have our node owners offset their own personal carbon footprint, because what it takes for you to have a computer or a phone you running a node on the same technology that's causing the problem gives you a way to offset your own carbon footprint. And so the node, obviously the blockchain, this decentralized network that we use, is run on individual computers that you guys would run or put on a third party. And so the node powers all of this. The node is the key, thus turning the node owner into part of the solution. So now you, rather than just running around with all this technology that's coming at the cost of humanity and the environment, can now use that exact same technology to run a node and to offset the harm that that technology is causing. But the blockchain is a powerful software. It's changing the world. Blockchain is being used by probably every Fortune 500 company right out there right now. And the way we use the blockchain is through nodes that allows greater participation from more people and to give you a daily reward for being part of the solution. So it's really a win-win. There aren't many true win-wins out there. Blockchain is allowing us to create a win-win because you are now being rewarded for being a part of a solution that you didn't even know needed a solution, right? Most people don't know what's happening out there in the mining world. Now we're bringing that awareness to people to let you know this is the destruction that you are inadvertently causing by having technology. You can use that same technology to run a node. When Element United creates a blockchain supported product, you as a node owner on the Element blockchain are part of that solution now.
So talk real quickly about the separation between Element, the blockchain, and Element United.
Well, that's the beauty of it. Element United, the company that I am the president of, we create these blockchain solutions that's run on the Element blockchain that you control. All of you as node owners, this is yours. You have voting rights. You have this DGF, this decentralized governance framework that you can have. You can make suggestions. You can run it. Get your rewards listed on exchanges. That's all run by the community. It has nothing to do with us as a company, and that's the beauty of it, is that it's not us just making decisions. We will run Element United, the company, but anything that happens with rewards or distribution or tokens or getting listed on exchanges, that's all run by the community, which gives you guys a lot of say, a lot of power, and a lot of control over what happens with those digital rewards and with the blockchain in general. So that's really what's great, is that it's not controlled by us. They don't have to sit and rely on us,
right?
For these solutions. It's up to them to make this worth something, for themselves.
Yeah.
Which is how it should be, right? I don't want anyone relying on me going, Scott, you said da 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 da. No, this is something that the community runs on their own, and that's the beauty of it. Is it has nothing to do, the success of it has nothing to do with me or the company. It's on the community to be a part of the solution.
Okay, so you've mentioned a couple times about digital rewards.
Yeah.
Let's talk. So different blockchains have different names for their digital rewards.
Sure.
What is the reward that is earned on the Element blockchain, and what can those rewards be used for now, and what are the things that the community is talking about in the future?
Yeah, our reward is ELMT, just short for Element. Sometimes there's a little bit of confusion because the name of the company is Element United, right, and then it's the Element blockchain, and the token is also called ELMT. So there's a clear distinction between the two. The ELMT token is a utility token. In the future, there will be many uses for the token, such as using the token to buy more nodes, using the token to upgrade, using the token to buy physical gold and silver from ethically certified mines, using the token. The token will be available on exchanges. In the future, it can be bridged into an ERC20 token. The big one that we're working on now is the carbon credits will have to be purchased with the ELMT token, which gives it utility.
Yes.
So you guys as the community, with running nodes and earning that reward, there'll be a use for it. There'll be people looking for it because that's the only way they can purchase these carbon credits. So,
and we're going to talk all about that.
That's right.
In another course.
Yep.
So fantastic overview of the mining issues, the environmental destruction, the solution that Element United is bringing to the world. There's a lot of information that these people have just consumed as they're sitting down to dinner with their family, or they're out drinks with their friends.
Yeah.
What are the top things that they should bring up to bring element into the conversation? How can they share this?
The most important thing is, and this is the same job that I have as the president of the company, is to get the message out there that there are some serious problems that exist in the world that need solving. And the easiest way to bring that up is everybody has a phone. When you're sitting, at Thanksgiving or at the dinner, everybody's going to be staring at their phone, not looking at you. That's just the world we live in now. And so the question I always bring up, and we have a cool slide that we use that we can make available to people. It shows what it takes for you to have a phone. 6 continents, 42 different elements, 6 to 8 rare earth minerals, 6 to 8 4 to 5 conflict minerals, all so that you can have a phone. And that's how I bring up the topic.
Wow, that's a conversation starter.
Yeah, it is. When you realize literally what it takes for you to have that phone. But once that's the icebreaker that talks about, did you have any idea how much destruction happens so that you can have a phone? And then to let them know more about what we do, join our Discord, get on our website, we do live events all the time. That would be the best place to send people to see what we do. There'll be some video assets on our website that give a quick elevator pitch that talk about what we do. And in 2 minutes, we can talk about, this is the problem, here's the solution, here's how you can be a part of the solution. That's it. A massive problem exists. That's usually the wow shock factor of, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Letting them know that technology now exists to help solve these problems and that they can be rewarded for being a part of the solution. Those are the 3 things. Really, that's it. Did you know that this problem exists? Did you know you're part of the problem? Did you know you can be part of the solution? That's it.
That's really good. I mean, I think we can all take that and point them to your website and other places for more information.
Yep.
Scott, it's been a great conversation. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll see you on the next one.